aka Sparkle Story or Demon's Line. It's me, Sparkle's another here. Coming to this video, I am finally doing the Xmas battle. I finally nailed down the timeline. The Xmas battle happens after Yin Yang and Karma have met their father. So, yeah. So, in the drawings I did for this video, go in the following of, Karma, then Spike goes to 1000, and this universe, there's different versions of him in each one. Then Lefts, Deeren, Satan Claus, which are all redesigns. And then, if I remember correctly, a few new characters, like Hellish, who is a domestic hound in his human form, in his domestic hound form, then in his human form. Followed by a redraw of Tech Worm Cole, then, as I was saying, and then Kuro, Spike 1000, Domestic Black Dragon, and his, Domestic Black Dragon form, and his human form, which is by far one of my favorite designs. And, Demo, another Domestic Hound, in both his hound form and his human form. So without further ado, let's roll intro, and let's get into this video, and let's go. Like and subscribe if you enjoy this video. Okay, it appears that it's about time I tell y'all the story of the Xmas battle. This story took place after I met my father. I know it's been fluctuating from this amount of time to this amount of time, but I've finally been able to memorize it correctly. Due to some memory alternating spells I finally figured out. So, yeah. Believe me when I say that it was not fun trying to figure out how to fix my own memory. Being alive for a few thousand years already, it do things to you. But anyways, the story goes like this. I was standing on top of a grassy field, just admiring the landscape around me. I had some weird energy signatures telling me that something big was going to happen here. So I decided to go in, and by energy signatures, I was picking up some like extra realm type energy waves, like energies, whatever. And what happened, I'll go on to later. But as I was walking, it was in this area of 3 mountains that shifted in different colors. Sometimes they were darker, sometimes they were lighter. And then where you got in the middle, it was just a complete rocky area with a very dark mountain in the background. It was the place I knew this battle was going to take place. And trust me when I say, things got real messy real quick. And as you walked, the rocks kept shifting over and over and in colors due to the different amount of depth and how far in you were going. It was like this place was an exposed cave, and it was just starting to be more surfaced. But as I was walking, I decided to wait till I more or less had a countdown, because the energy signatures were like a countdown somehow. You're practically telling me, okay, this is not going to happen for like maybe a day or so. So I was decided, and this was like, what, Christmas Eve? It was pretty cold, but due to this weird elemental energy thing going on around there, it was actually pretty warm around that area. Weirdly warm. Took a temperature check, and shockingly, it came out to around nearly 70 degrees Fahrenheit. And as you walked and closer to the epicenter, it just got getting hotter and hotter, nearly reaching a few thousand degrees Fahrenheit in there. But due to some magic I have picked up and some spells, I have a permanent, how do you say this, heat resistance. So anything heat related, it cannot harm me, nor cold. but only really spiritual things can harm me. Even then, it has to be a pretty powerful attack. But, anyways, so as I was walking, I was picking up more and more energy signatures, and I decided to, well, pick up on the next one. Pick up on a call and a favor I was owed. I called in a Demost. Not just any Demost, the Demostic Lord King himself. Spikos 1000. He came in within a few hours later because he said he was busy on a hunt. And from what he told me earlier, later, this is what happened. Well, he was pretty much going on a hunt for someone, but came across something weird. It was pretty much a very similar special warping reality thing as I was going on, but it was a very minor one. Out crawled a creature that I've only seen a few times, but weirdly enough has actually changed in appearance, and it was a whole lot more nasty. So he immediately realized what it was and killed it. But we later had to deal with hundreds of thousands of more of these things. And trust me when I say that this was an utter pain to deal with. Now, so I decided to ready a blade. I also got ready with my Demostic arm and tail for the fight. And at this time, my scar that was formed on my face had healed, but left 3 scratch marks on one eye and 1 scratch mark over the other. And which I most ironically and most people see me wearing a red shirt and blue pants with gray shoes. It's more or less my working gear. Now, let's see what Spike Ghost told me. Thank you, Karma. Okay, it's me, Spike Ghost here. I know my voice changes every now and again, but hey, it's something that's happened. Not just overseers, but other creatures like Demost and whatever have the similar thing. So, on the day before this happened, Deathmatch Battle happened, I was hunting a human, well, more or less, but I pulled this thing from a Marvel movie, called Ghost Rider. He calls them sinners. I call them scumbags. So, I was hunting this one scumbag. That was a particularly, nasty one. I don't want to delve in because I would want to go to hell and find that guy ripped into shreds myself. But, anyways, so I was on this hunt for this one guy. Eventually found him, and I pretty much slaughtered the guy. And after that, the police came in and told me that once they saw who I was, they backed away and took the body to the morgue. And later told me that they told the coroner or mortician to just put it with the other kills under this guy. And that's exactly what they did. And, well, how do you say this? As I was leaving that area, I'm cleaning off the blood, I came across a rift in space that led to hell. Trust me when I say that this was no ordinary portal. I had gone into hell so many times, I was scared of Lucifer. He's now just really, really scared of me. But, anyways, I have scared him enough to the point that, well, how do you say this? He lets me wander hell freely. So I knew this part of hell the least amount. And as I was walking, I could pick up on something that was quite weird. So I decided to walk out of the portal. And right as I was coming out, I decided to jump behind a building and on top of another. Good thing I did, because as soon as I did, about a minute later, a creature crawled out that reminded me of something called a Leph. Little did I know at the moment, it was exactly one, but it was more demon looking. These creatures, it crawled out and looked around and started running toward the populous area. It was more or less, I could tell by its size, it was more or less a scout. So I immediately conjured up some demonic flames and burned the thing to death. The things were now erased from near existence. So I later got the call for Spike from Karma, to come in and deal with it and help him with the hunt. So I came in, and like he said, it was a whole lot more than we can understand. But let's just say that the fight was glorious in utter pain. Fast forward to the next day when we had set up camp and we were practicing some exercises and warming up for what Karma could tell was going to be a big fight. I had manipulated my aura and strength just enough to have a good fight. So, yeah, because I sometimes accidentally destroy the universe. Could destroy the universe, but a good chunk of it anyways. So, we decided to just go and fight. So, we decided to, it was Christmas the next day, and we decided to walk in to what would soon be a really, really nasty fight. Now, back over to you, Karma. Thank you, Spike. Well, anyways, as me and Spike were walking in, we saw a giant portal open up, and out spawned hundreds, if not thousands, of Lephs. Lephs were these creatures that were really small in nature and pretty much look like your average elf with green clothing and green swirly shoes and hats, but they had red eyes. But these things carried a hammer around and had the ability to cast hell flames. So all around, not really a fun creature to deal with. But for some reason over time, these things have mutated. Now, turning into whatever these things are. Still call them Lephs, because they still have their same nature. And they were surrounding us. And trust me when I say it was an utter pain. We decided to go ahead and start fighting. Spike had called in 2 subordinates of his that were under his own control and were part of the Spike's army. 2 of his generals, to put it lightly. They started ripping into them and literally breathing fire on them. One was breathing fire on them, left, right, and center, but a few of them were getting good hits in, and so I decided to run back into town and gather some more troops. And I managed to gather quite a good army because of my standing with the local militias and other government bodies. I was able to bring in a few soldiers. They were all trained with swords because in this world some things are not going to be dealt with guns so easily. So they brought in their own swords. And right as we rocked back in, I immediately realized that these guys were going to get some seriously heat exhaustion. So I quickly casted a spell for heat immunity, lasting for a few months. Because, hey, these guys are going to deal with something in another hot case. So we were running in, and Spike, they immediately stopped when they saw Spike, and that's why they were needed. I said, "Look around you," and as soon as they did, hundreds of thousands more left start spilling out of the portal. And as soon as that happened, I realized 3 more had opened up. 2 further back and 1 closer to the entrance, which was spilling out more into a cave, waiting for an ambush. I immediately casted black flames, and that was boosted to more of a domestic flame, and controlled it and roasted all the ones in that cave alive. But that still didn't really do much. Few of them leapt out of the cave and immediately started casting hellfire upon the troops. They opened up their own spells. Some were casting fireballs, others were casting lightning bolts. Some even a few water spells. But a few of them got real nasty. And the left, by nasty I mean like they were casting immediate death spells, like really just off selling fast. And some of these spells literally cause your head to explode. That's what happened to a few lefts. But lefts were spilling out faster and faster than we could handle. So I drew my own blade. At the moment I was just fighting bare-fisted, and I was using a magical summoned blade. So I immediately desummoned that one blade and drew my own main weapon. I call the blade Ragnarok. I know it's quite a common name for other blades, but trust me when I say Ragnarok could end the world easily. Its own sword strength rivals that of a domestic king. So, to put it lightly, I basically had the power of a domestic king on my side, and that thing was still not as strong as me. So I started running in and swinging at these things. One even decided to try to bash my skull in, and it being a complete idiot, not knowing who I was. Only Satan claws knew exactly who I was. It didn't even dip me. I just lashed the thing's tail off, grabbed its head, and burnt its skull clean through. We were making some great progress, but with us having killed at least 200,000 so the left, a few Deeren flew in, 12 only. But these things were a whole lot more powerful than less. These things were more demonic than I remembered. They still had their trademark teeth and horns and nose and tail, but they were more demonic looking. They flew in on, well, nothing really, but from the heat they were letting off, it was that of hell heat. The heat from hell itself. These creatures were definitely not under the control of Lucifer. I asked Spike about it later, and he said these things were rogue demons. Nasty creatures, but real easy for him to crush. But that was getting on our nerves. What was really getting on our nerves and really weakening us was creatures. There was only being 12 of them, yes, but they were an utter pain to deal with. You see, they had the ability to cast little beams of hellfire out from their nose. Pretty much like hell flares, more like it. But a single blast was able to level a small hill. So you can tell that these things were a major nuisance. So some of the casters and spell users casted barrier spells to protect them. Now the drawback of barrier spells is that if there's a spell hit that's stronger, you have to be a really strong magic user in order to keep the spell up without getting exhausted. Because any damage dealt to this barrier would be dealt to your, energy reserves. So, yeah, it's a weird magic system. But I was able to bring up my own barriers engulfing nearly the entire army. And let's just say I had to charge back out, and I managed to fly back up into the air and stab one with my tail, bringing it down. It was 11 remaining. We kept shooting into the sky, eventually knocking out 5 more halfway out. But these things were getting faster and more intelligent, and they soon started avoiding me, because they knew if I got close I was able to use my own blade, which could eliminate them from existence automatically. I looked over and saw Spike had dealt with another 3. He was having a harder time because they realized that they really needed to stay away from him if they wanted to somehow make sure. I was making sure none of them were getting outside of the cavern area. So, in order to keep myself focused, I had a clone of myself, a temporary one, that I cast earlier on, go out and tell some of the soldiers to fall back and protect the outside. Pretty much ambush any less that came out there to that area. I saw one really big left. Tried charging at them to break the ranks so that more or less could get outside and wreak havoc on the world for Christmas. But I decided that was not going to happen. I asked one of the soldiers to give me a boost. He put his hands down and he pushed me up into the air when I ran at him. I leapt further and further onto the creature, and I finally grabbed onto it. Climbing up it, and I said, "Spike, now." He realized what I was doing, and he summoned demonic flames and threw them directly at me. And due to me being the son of the overseer, I was able to catch him and direct it right down to the guy's head. And boosting it with my own powers, I was able to roast the thing to complete ash. It was a nasty attack. Took out a good 1,000 less that were surrounding it. The reason why those were affected, not the humans, was because the barriers were selecting humans only. Now, if we had any beastmen in our teams, they would also not be affected. Because as long as you know who's in your army and who's on your team, it is going to be a protection for anyone. As the battle raged more and more and more, these things, eventually we managed to dust and kill the remaining Diran. But I knew these things would eventually regenerate in hell, due to their nature being only 12. But I knew there was a chance that there were offspring of them. And soon enough, the head honcho himself started making his way from Hell's Gates. A portal opened up directly above us, and out leapt him, Satan Claus himself. He started slashing away through with his net, slamming it down and catching at least 5 people at a time. And each time he caught another, he ate them whole. He even stared me directly in the eye and ate someone's head clean off. We lost about 10 men due to him from that one swift attack, from him eating them. But he killed another 15 with his claws. He'd originally had claws like Wolverine, but they were shifted and down on his arms. And this guy's legs were now different in the fact that they were more like grasshoppers. Still were not cloven, but still made like a clop noise as he ran. He leapt onto one ledge. I fired a spell. He ducked under. Fired another. He ducked under. Managed to hit the ledge he was on, and I ran over to him with the blade. He countered with the spear end of his net. Then he leapt back. I leapt forward, slashing at him, managing to cut an eye. But his eye regenerated in an instant. I decided to bring on some spells that I knew would take a lot out of me. I was about to cast Cruel Sun on the guy to roast him, but he managed to slam me out of the way and stab me in the chest. Not puncturing my heart, but in the gut. But somewhere near it. This thing hurt for quite a bit, and due to its nature of being somewhat of a spiritual attack, it didn't heal for a good 5 minutes. So I got back up, grabbed my kit, my needle and thread, and started stitching myself up. I was able to cast a quick barrier. It was a very quick spell, so it was a very weak barrier, but due to my strength and magic, it was able to hold itself up for quite some time. But he started raining at me, stomping his way through multiple others, and started slamming his fists on the barrier. After a minute, I was able to fully stitch it up. So I opened up the ground below me and flew down right as he shattered the barrier. I fell into a pit full of lefts. Right as I was falling, I decided to use a shockwave spell. And right as I landed, I released it, killing all the lefts that were in the pit. I then opened up the hole directly above me and leapt out. I then slammed my sword down, hilt first onto his Satan Claus's head, knocking him unconscious for a quick moment. In the moment he was knocked out, I gripped his tail and threw him about 15 meters away, right crashing into more lefts, killing them. I ran over to Spike and said, "How many do you reckon?" He said, "At least 500,000 more." I said, "Crap. These motherfuckers are not gonna go away anytime soon." I turned towards the soldiers and said, defensive positions, everyone. And they listened. They rose their barriers and shields up, ready for a fight. And as it was gonna be a fight for a long time. The temperature was starting to rise to the point I could starting to feel it before my immunity started raising even higher. Eventually, I was starting to get worn out due to the massive amount of magic I was starting to use up, using some pretty powerful spells. Right as I walked over to a rock to catch my breath, left started to get closer to me. I didn't realize it because I canceled out my sensory magic for a quick moment to catch my breath. It leapt down, but right before it could stab me in the head, a figure flew by and grabbed it in its maw. I looked up and saw a domestic hound crush the thing in its mouth. Domestic hounds, from what I remembered, were exactly they sounded like. Hounds that were infused with domestic abilities. They were quite recognizable due to their size. When I say size, like regular ones are like at least 3 feet, closer to 5 feet tall. This thing was huge, easily 15 feet tall. I recognized him as Hellish, the Alpha. Due to his power, he was, Ghost 1000 personal domestic hound. His personal hunter. And domestic hounds is sent rivals that. Was even stronger than that of a hellhound's. He started running around, slashing more and other lefts around me. He then ran at another right behind me, crushed in its jaw. And after 5 minutes of this, I was fully rested and drew my blade once more. I then summoned another magical blade and ran back into the fight. I was slashing and hacking away at all of them due to the help of Hellish. Hellish was starting to charge a beam in his mouth when I turned and looked at him to see where he was, which was surprisingly near me. And he started to back away into the crowd. I could immediately sense why, so I started charging more and more closer into the field. We had killed at least a few thousand more left, but we were still making a hard dent in their numbers. Eventually, I managed to slam my sword down and open up a chasm, killing at least 10,000 more due to the fall of them. I then looked back and saw about 10,000 more were in complete flames. And from a quick estimate and energy signature count, I detected at least 450,000 remaining. I said to myself, at this rate, we're gonna be done by nighttime. And, well, I decided to cast a cruel sun to kill at least another 50,000. And I managed to. But I blacked out for a few seconds. In those few seconds, I saw a smaller figure in my periphery. And I woke up a few minutes later. I saw that I was on the back of Hellish, running towards Spike. I was a little groggy from my little quick nap. When I managed to get off Hellish, he was staying right beside Spike. I turned to asked Spike what had happened. He said, "You passed out directly in the middle of the fight, so I had Hellish pick you up." And I said, "Thank you." And as we did, and thanks to him, I, only got out of there and managed to stay in the fight for a good chunk more time. If I was passed out, my magic would have been deactivated, and I would have been seriously injured, if not nearly killed. Killed by a left, one of the weakest creatures around here, I thought. So I managed to stay with Spike for a few minutes so I can catch my breath. Looked and saw that the soldiers I had brought in were being surrounded. I immediately started running faster and faster towards them. And I was always running. I realized that Hellish was running alongside me. And then he disappeared in a black mist. And in his place was someone that resembled like a 21-year-old man, very muscular, with domestic hound claws and tail, wearing a gray jacket with domestic hound fur. I immediately realized that this was a domestic hound's human form. He had red eyes and charged directly at them. His eyes were laying off some type of smoke. He charged in, twirling around, slicing away at every left surrounding that area. He pounced on one, then another, and then another. And then blood sprayed from where he was. It was like watching a over-glorified monster just utterly decimate everything in his path. And within 10 minutes, he had killed 5,000 by himself. He walked out of the battle, and about 5,000 was surrounding the soldiers. He walked out of the grave of the mass of bodies and said, "Name's Hellish. I'm the alpha of domestic hounds," and I stopped him there and said, "Since when do you have a human form?" He said, "Well, I've only realized a few days ago, and this is my first time really using this form." Turns out Hellish being Spiko's pet and general, he was able to talk, but he chose not to unless it was with someone he had full trust in, or Spike had full trust in. And Spike fully trusted me, so I decided to keep it a secret. So he used his tail to help me up, because I had fallen earlier on. And he had, answered a few more questions, like of that how rare are domestic hounds, because I've only heard legends of them. He said that they were quite rare. Only one in every around 1 million people. So, pretty rare creatures, but nearly impossible to kill, just like domestic black dragons. He said that they were pretty powerful creatures. They were pretty much originally hellhounds until the original was found and was originally hellhound that didn't really attack humans. Only a select few. Never attacked an innocent. Satan was going to kill it, and he said that Spike stopped him and took the pet in. Took the hellhound in and gave her the name of Hellish. And from there, he was changed from a hellhound into a domestic hound. He said, "You can also tell I'm the original domestic hound." He said all this as we were fighting and slashing, hacking our way through each and every last left. We decided to, just get this fight done with as soon as possible. So we had decided on a quick silence so we could quickly and more efficiently kill these creatures. And we were doing a decent number on them. We were killing at least 100 per minute. So, and he said the reason why he was able to kill around 5,000, around 10, was because of the fact he just really never used his body and had a massive boost of energy for a little bit. So we were able to eventually see that this was a nearly cleared area. I looked at my energy signatures and I saw that they were somehow higher than I remembered. Then I remembered about the portals that were still open. I was like, oh frick. I remember the portals. As I was running, Hellish, still in his human form, reverted back into his domestic hound form. He turned to me and said, "What do you mean portals?" I said, "Didn't you see those portals that were around that area? Those portals opened directly to hell, releasing those creatures here." And as I was saying that, I was shoved out of the way from Santa Claus. Hellish was about to leap at him, but he was grabbed around the head, and Mosh threw out of the way towards Spike. The reason why was because he was able to get the element of surprise on Hellish. He then ran over to me and started kicking me around like a football. He picked up his net, slamming on top of me, and it was a power canceling net, so I couldn't really use any high level magic spells. And as he pulled me out, a red beam shot at him. I looked around, and saw someone wearing a jacket with spikes on it, with a weird hand, an ear, and a sword on it. He looked directly at Satan Claus and said, "How many times do I have to go and kill these creatures?" He then picked up his blaster and said, "Tekka, you ready for this?" and shot another beam at him. This beam shot directly through him, stunning him for a few minutes. And he helped me up and said, "The name is Cole, and this is Tekka." Tekka looked over and said, "Hi, I'm Tekka, and I am a Tekka worm. Tekka worms are creatures that are pretty much parasites that bond to biological hosts that have some mechanical bits to them, pretty much making them cyborgs." I said, "Okay, that is quite interesting. And, well, you got anything that can help with this guy?" He said, "Oh yeah, Satan Claus, a demon, yeah. This is gonna be fun to deal with." He then shifted down onto Cole's legs, giving him something that resembled wolf legs, and started charging directly at him. And I was immediately able to tell that he had some really, really good training, because he was able to immediately shift from his legs over to his hand, and back into a giant claw that slashed at Satan Claus, cutting his arm off, and also completely demolishing his power canceling net. It crumbled to ash, but I soon grimaced at the thought this thing was going to be pieced back together in hell. He was making good damage on him, and Hellish decided to get back up and charged more at him. He had killed at least 1,000 less on his way back. He started to charge toward Cole, and I said, "Hellish, stop. He's on our side." Hellish then started charging at the location of Cole, but he shifted into his human form, stopped and said, "Thank you for the help," and started charging directly at Satan Claus, leaping onto his face and starting to rip onto it more and more and more. Even started to kick the guy and punch him in the face. Cole and Tekka eventually started to deal some more damage, and by shifting him on, by Tekka making a backpack on his back and putting another cable on to his other hand. They then summoned claws that resembled that of a demon's and started charging at him. The stone started to energize with a red energy. He then started hacking and slashing away at him. And just then, as we were starting to deal some more damage on him, he was able to somehow smack away them all. Cole was able to have Tekka make a little pole behind him to stop him, and he also dashed towards Hellish and picked him up. But Santa Claus managed to get to a crowd of lefts. They're around 1,000. He killed them to regenerate. He then regenerated his limb and his arm. He then resummoned his power canceling net minus the net. He then charged at us once again. But then we heard a thunderous roar coming from a mountain ledge. We all turned and saw Spike's other summon in general, called Kuro, in his demonic black dragon form. Kuro leapt down onto the ground, let out a mighty roar, and showed his full wings of 200 feet long in total. He then swung his about 75-foot long tail at him, piercing him through the chest and slamming him into the ground. He then picked up his maw head first and blew demonic flames through him, threw him out to the side, and flew up into the air over to Spike. Where Spike was, we could see a heavily injured and near dead Satan Claus. I looked at my energy signatures and saw that he was nearly dead and with no signs of regenerating. But I also picked up on around 500,000 more lefts. And I knew this was going to be a fight. I saw all these lefts were in different locations, all around this one area. Still couldn't remember why this area was so special. Then I remembered about the place I found. I immediately thought, that's why they're here. I immediately started running towards it. It was the cave of where I first found my dragons. The temple of the first hybrid I've ever found. As I started to run, I saw more and more lefts getting there. And I soon summoned my blade to my hand, slashing and hacking my way through them all. I killed more and more of them. Cole saw that I was running over to that area, so he started to run after me and asking, okay, what is going on? I've only been to this dimension one other time, and that was to, get basic information so I don't have to come here again. He said that he only comes here every now and again, and only one other time. He's a world jumper, due to Tekka being part of a machine that took over a part of a machine that could jump through places in this multiverse. I said, I already know about the multiverse and the multiverses. This is going to hurt pain. He then started catching up to me by having Tekka shift over into wolf legs once more. He said, okay, so what is going on exactly? I turned to him and said, I am having to get up here to this temple. It was where I first found my hybrids. Your first dragons, huh? A demonic black dragon, I'm guessing? I looked at him and said, how did you know? He said, you pick up on things. He then had Tech transform into a little cannon at the ready. It was all Tech could do, given his strenuous situation on his legs. We stopped at the temple entrance. As we entered, we saw a group of at least 400,000 lefts in the area trying to find something. As we opened the first gate into the area, they all looked up and saw us. We leapt into the battle with our weapons drawn, and Cole having Tech shift over into his first weapon I saw. They started rushing in with a gun at the ready and a blade at the ready. He started shooting at left, right, and center. We soon heard a mighty roar coming from the entrance. We looked back and ducked out of the way, right as Kuro flew in, decimating 10,000 more than we had already just killed. I made a silent note to myself, for 380,000 more to go. We leapt into the fight, but something was different. Instead of Kuro in there, I saw a human wearing armor and with scaly hands and a tail. At first I thought he was another Humost, like me. But I realized that he wasn't. He was not even summoning. He was summoning demonic flames, but from his mouth or his sword. He then unclicked his sword, having it morph into a sword whip. He lashed it around, slicing at multiples. He then started something like moving around like in a dance, slashing and hacking away at more and more and more less, breathing fire as he goes, and sometimes even spinning his tail around, slashing at least 6 at a time. Soon after that, we were starting making more and more major dents in the army. I looked at my energy signatures and saw that there were at least 100,000 outside that Spike were dealing with. I could also tell that Spike's energy, he decided to increase his energy capacity for that time. So we were dealing with at least a few 100,000 more in here. I started looking at the energy layout of this person, and I saw that it was exactly like Kuro, just human. After we managed to deal with the other remaining around 350,000 left, which took around 5 hours, I walked over to the person and said, "Are you by any chance Kuro?" Kuro whipped his blade back into place and said, "Well, yes, I am. I'm the general alongside Hellish, and well, I am also the leader of the domestic Black Dragon Knights." I looked at him with a dumbfounded expression and said, "You are the leader of the domestic Black Dragon Knights?" I said. I immediately kneeled down. The domestic Black Dragon Knights are a very elite group of knights that were in charge of protecting this world for a good chunk of time. They're still around today, but to meet the captain and leader of them all was near impossible. No one really knew who he was, other than the fact that he was a powerful individual. You either had to be a child or a domestic Black Dragon yourself in order to even think about qualifying to join them. And here I was talking to him. I looked at him and said, "So, how did you get here?" He said, "I literally just said that I am Kuro, the domestic Black Dragon that belongs to Spike Ghost 1000. I said, "Oh yeah. Wait. Oh, frick. Sorry, I'm so sorry." He said, "It was okay." What he meant was, what was going on was the fact that I knew a major secret that nearly no one else knew. So, after that we left, and I was, heading down back to Spike. And right as I stepped foot outside the temple, I passed out yet again. And I saw this wolf figure walk up towards me and lay down beside me. And I uncharacteristically started to pet it. It let out a small growl of approval, and somehow I immediately knew this was a creature that was meant to be mine. Somehow I knew this creature was its own entity and was very selective of who its master was. Round about an hour later, I had woken up to the same creature sitting right beside me, with Spike, Cole, Kuro, and Hellish all sitting over in another area. I got up and walked over to them and said, "Hey guys, what happened?" They looked over and Spike and Hellish let out a loud, "What the frick?" And I asked, "What is it?" as I was scratching the wolf's head. They got up and pushed me away, saying, "That is a domestic hound, a very, very powerful one. It was a Alpha Omega one, a very, very rare breed." I knew Omegas were a lower rank than Alphas, but an Alpha Omega, it was like a pack leader of a pack leader. It was a like a rank below pack leader, like pack leader of all packs. Krellish walked over and said, "How on earth do you have this guy? He is someone's power who was nearly on that of my own, like half a power level lower." I looked at him and said, "Half a power level lower? This guy isn't even half your size in his wolf form." He said, "He's not a wolf, he's a domestic hound." The domestic hound then ran over to me and bit Helsh's leg. He let out a loud, "Ow!" and started limping away. This made everyone laugh. And the hound looked at me. I could immediately tell that I needed to give it a name. I started thinking it over and gave a few like Rex and Frank, eventually settling on Demo. I could immediately sense a power increase of the creature by like a half higher, like half a rank higher, like an energy level, like a power level higher. So it's hard to describe, okay? And the creature looked at me and said, "Hello, Karma." I passed out yet again from shock this time. As I was passed out, I started not really remembering anything. I started going through memories of some creatures. I remembered cataloging every dragon and every other creature. Here's the reason exactly why I was able to get my memories sorted, because I managed to resummon Demo this time around, and he helped me fill out exactly what happened. He's also the one who taught me the memory aligning spells. And later, when I woke up, he walked over to me and laid beside me and said, while in his domestic hound form, "I see you remembered everything now." I said, "Yeah, how exactly did that happen? I always originally thought my powers come from my domestic oversee our father and my spells. He says, they do. But also, from your ability to gain friends pretty much anywhere. He then shifted into his human form, resembling closely to that of Hellish, but his claws were not nearly as big, nor his tail was nearly as long. He sat up and said, well, since you gave me a name, I might as well start pretty much living with you. I said, soul bonding. Yeah. He said, well, naming a creature is actually on a whole another level than soul bonding. I said, I know, but it's quite similar. He said, no, it's not. It's actually a whole lot more powerful. If we were to soul bond with a creature, then give it a name, it's about twice as powerful. And the soul bonding technique we were using earlier, around about 2 hours ago, it pretty much solidified our souls together. We both have our own beings, but if one of us dies, one of the other could bring us back. I looked at him and said, what the frick? He also said, and due to that nature, we're also able to tell exactly where the other person is. And I also increased your soul bonding strength to all your other creatures. I looked at him and said, so that means, yes, you can exactly tell where your dragons are right now. I looked at him and said, I know where they are, they're at home. It's a simple tracking spell I use. He looked at me and said, well, dragons are quite conniving creatures. They were intelligent enough to leave some energy layout signatures and cloak the rest while there. I looked at him and said, of course. Intelligent little fricks. He said, exactly, they are. I then closed my eyes and sensed exactly where my demonic black dragon was. He was out in a forest hunting. I told him via telepathy, to get his little butt back home, along with the other ones too. And don't even think about saying that they're already home. So, yeah. Turns out that this Xmas battle was by far one of the craziest things that has happened. And trust me when I say that having to deal with this dragon that shapeshifted into a female is none the easier. I managed to wrangle her down earlier and managed to kind of transcribe all this. Now, here is the audio completion. Okay. Finally, all that's done. Yo, demo. Yes, Karma. Just how much longer is this thing gonna last? About a few more days. The splitting headache and spell is taking forever. Who exactly is this lady? I don't even know, Master. How many times I tell you, quit calling me Master? Just call me Karma, for crying out loud. Okay, Karma. Finally. So, I'm gonna go check on the demonic black dragons. It's also quite weird I got you on Christmas. You're pretty much like a Christmas present. He said, exactly. I'm surprised you didn't name me Xmas. Thought didn't cross my mind though. did cross my mind of naming you that, to be honest. You little motherfucker. He said, hey, it's all Bonnie, so I know exactly what you're thinking. I wish I didn't teach you that. Well, frick you. Yeah. Well, okay, everyone, line up. And as I said that, all the dragons lined up. Well, okay, exactly who decided to eat all of the food that was supposed to last us for the remaining of this year? Well, I'm afraid that's all the time I got for today's video. Until next time, subscribe today to join the Spike Army or to Muscle Alliance. Goodbye and peace out, everyone.